We'll move to questions without notice. Are there any questions? I give the call to the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. I refer to the report into CFMEU corruption, where the Chief Investigator found that taxpayer funds were compromised, and I quote, "Bribes were being paid here, there and everywhere." Will the Prime Minister write today to the National Anti-Corruption Commission seeking an urgent investigation into this serious matter to ensure that Commonwealth taxpayer funds have not been misused and that no Commonwealth official has been implicated in these extremely serious findings?
Call to the Minister for Workplace Relations and Employment.
Thank you, Speaker, and I thank the Leader of the Opposition for her question. The Watson report is an important report that was commissioned by the Administrator to help him in the work that he is involved in cleaning up the CFMEU. Of course, this report was detailed work that clearly identified issues going back from 2012 until the Administrator actually took over. Mr Irving has released a detailed statement in response to the report. He will refer the report to the AFP, Victoria Police, the Fair Work Commission and other relevant law enforcement agencies and regulators. Mr Irving has said that this report had been released so authorities can take whatever enforcement action they consider appropriate as the CFMEU enters a new chapter under his leadership.
Call to the honourable member for Maribyrnong.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. How is the Albanese Labor government showing leadership and delivering for Australians by strengthening Medicare, easing cost of living pressures and helping them to earn more and keep more of what they earn? How does this compare to other approaches to leadership in Australia?
The call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Maribyrnong for her question. Indeed, we are focused on the Australian people and working every day to deliver for them. We're strengthening Medicare because that's just what Labor governments do. More bulk billing, making medicines cheaper, opening urgent care clinics, delivering 1-800 Medicare, properly funding public hospitals, making sure that the only thing that Australians need is their Medicare card, not their credit card. We're delivering cost of living relief across the board, cutting taxes, cutting student debt, getting real wages up and protecting penalty rates, so that Australians can earn more and keep more of what they earn. We're properly funding every single public school in the country, making a difference. We've had 725,000 Australians have benefited from free take. We're establishing university study hubs around regional Australia. We are making it easier for Australians to get into their own home. Help to Buy is up and running. Build to Rent is building. And since we fast-tracked our 5% deposit scheme in October last year, more than 31,000 new home buyers have their first home. There's always more to do, and our work to make a positive difference is never finished. But, Mr Speaker, while we're building more homes for Australians, those opposite are busy tearing down their own homes. They're obsessed with cutting each other down, but they never want to cut your taxes or cut the cost of living. They can't stand each other, Mr Speaker, but they all stand for cutting Medicare. They love fighting, but they never fight for Australia. They just fight each other because it goes to their core values. And we've seen that with the extraordinary launch of a leadership campaign that didn't have a single new policy idea. It was just the vibe. They got out there, not a single new idea.
Order. No, Prime Minister will. No, the Prime Minister pause. Before we go to the next question, I'll hit order. Members on my right. The member for Moncrieff is entitled to take her point of order, and she shall do so.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Prime Minister, it's on relevance. You're really not talking about what the question was and giving us an answer. You're focusing on the opposition.
Order. The member for Gippsland. The Leader of the House.
The final part of the question asks for the Prime Minister to provide information to the House on other approaches to leadership. There are many to choose from those opposite, and that's
the Prime Minister was definitely asked about approaches to leadership, and so the comments he is making is obviously directly relevant to the question he was asked.
I was waiting for their leadership candidate to say, vote for me and I support world peace. That was the substance that was in there. Because essentially they all agree. They all agree. We're not looking after Australians but just looking after themselves. And it doesn't matter who sits in that chair. The problem isn't the leader. The problem is that whoever sits there will just be another Liberal.
Call to the honourable member for Warringah.
Thank you. To the Housing Minister or Treasurer in her stead. Warringah contains some of the most expensive land in the country, contributing to a shortage of crisis accommodation and social and affordable housing. The government has announced plans to divest part of HMS Penguin land at Balmoral in Warringah and intends to seek full market value, prompting concerns the land will be sold to wealthy developers for luxury apartments and not address issues of public affordable, social and affordable houses or crisis accommodation. Will the minister take steps to ensure this public asset is used for social benefit?
Give a call to the Treasurer representing the Minister for Housing, Homelessness and Cities.
Yeah, thanks very much, Mr Speaker, and to the honourable member for her question. I will speak to the colleagues about that specific parcel of land that the honourable member refers to. I know that you've raised it with us in good faith, and we will check it out. On our approach to social housing more broadly, we've built about 5,000 social and affordable homes already. There's another 25,000 in planning or construction. And that's because, unlike our predecessors, we are taking this housing challenge very seriously. And we know that in different communities around Australia, there are different opportunities to build more social and community housing. And as we go about that important task, we'll be as consultative as we can be.
Call to the honourable member for Lingiari.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Indigenous Australians. Minister, today the government released Closing the Gap annual report, and the Prime Minister demonstrated in his address that we are getting on with the job of delivering for First Nations people. What are the priorities of this year's Closing the Gap report?
Call to the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations representing the Minister for Indigenous Australians.
Thank you, Speaker. And I'd like to thank the member for Lingiari for that question, but also for the incredible, valuable role that she plays on ensuring that our government remains focused on closing the gap. As our Prime Minister has said, our government is determined and optimistic about closing the gap for First Nations people. To achieve this, our government is building on what works, listening to First Nations people, partnering with their organisations and investing in community-led solutions. I'd like to really recognise the Minister for Indigenous Australians on her work on the 2025 Closing the Gap annual report and the 2026 annual implementation plan, which demonstrates our progress and sets out a clear agenda for the year ahead. Our government is delivering jobs and training. We're easing the cost of living pressures and making significant new investments in areas such as food security in remote communities, health, housing and education. The Albanese government is delivering more real jobs in remote communities because every Australian deserves the opportunity of the dignity of work and a fair pay for the work they do. We have announced that we are doubling the Remote Jobs and Economic Development program from 3,000 to 6,000 jobs. Already 1,500 jobs have already been created across the country. And we're delivering cost of living relief by lifting the cap on our low-cost essential subsidy scheme and making it available to all 225 remote stores across Australia, reducing the price of 30 essential grocery items. And through National Cabinet, governments have agreed on record Commonwealth investment for First Nations health and secured further health investment for states and territories. And while building on what works, we're investing in Aboriginal community-controlled health services infrastructure. We're supporting birthing on country so more babies are born at full term, and we're training more First Nations health workers. The Albanese Labor government is also taking action where we know we need to see more progress. This week, in partnership with First Nations people and all Australian governments, we have launched the first standalone national Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander plan to end family, domestic and sexual violence, backed by immediate investment. Now, this has been long advocated, and I'd like to recognise the work of the Minister for Social Services and Auntie Muriel Bamblett, along with the Our Way Steering Committee, for making this happen. Closing the gap requires partnership with First Nations people and action right across government. As the Prime Minister has said, working together we will succeed in closing the gap and delivering better outcomes for First Nations Australians.
I call the member for Goulston. I'll just do some acknowledgements in the gallery today. I'm pleased to welcome Councillor Helen O'Neill from Bega Valley Shire as a guest of the Emergency Management from her electorate of Eden Monaro, and Mr Rocco O'Keefe OAM and Mrs Joan O'Keefe OAM, both awarded Order of Australia medals this year in this year's honours list as guests of the member of Moncrieff. Give a call to the honourable member for Goulston.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister, and I refer to his minister's refusal to answer questions yesterday and today about Geoffrey Watson's report into the CFMEU Labor cartel of corruption. Given the Prime Minister has refused to write to the National Anti-Corruption Commission, can the Prime Minister explain what steps he has taken to satisfy himself that not a single hard-earned taxpayer's dollar from the Commonwealth has been misused?
Give a call to the Prime Minister.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. I want to address the part of the question that goes to the NAC. The NAC is independent. That is how it has been established. They can look at whatever they want to look at. They can refer and do whatever inquiries they want, and they should be allowed to do so without political interference.
No, the Prime Minister has concluded his answer. Order. Order. The member for Goulston has asked his question. The question's been answered. We'll now hear from the honourable member for Solomon.
Thanks, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Health. How is the Albanese Labor government's record investment in Medicare making it easier for Territorians to see a doctor for free? Why is it so important after a decade of cuts and neglect?
Call to the Minister for Health and Ageing and the Minister for Disability and the National Disability Insurance Scheme.
Thank you, Speaker. And thanks to the member for Solomon. He and the member for Lingiari are amazing advocates for better health care for that incredible part of the country they represent. And their advocacy, that advocacy, I can tell you, has driven our record support for a stronger Medicare in the top end. The member for Solomon, I can tell you, Mr Speaker, was a relentless supporter of Charles Darwin University's bid for the first medical school ever in the Territory. I know he's delighted they're taking on students this month, Mr Speaker. And both members also pushed our government finally to address the historical underfunding of Territory hospitals that had seen the Territory receive less funding proportionally than any other jurisdiction for many, many years, and we fixed that as well, Mr Speaker. This year, we've increased Commonwealth funding to Territory hospitals by 30%, the biggest increase any jurisdiction has ever received in hospital funding. Indeed, Territory hospitals, as a result of the National Cabinet Agreement, Territory hospitals will receive $1 billion more than they would have received through an extension of the old Morrison agreement, Mr Speaker. And we've opened 8 Medicare urgent care clinics as well, Mr Speaker. 6 in remote communities, 1 in Alice, 1 in Palmerston, and a 9th urgent care clinic will soon open in Darwin because of a promise made by the member for Solomon at the last election, Mr Speaker. Now, Mr Speaker, the member also asked me about bulk billing rates in the Territory, and I'm pleased to report that the number of general practices in Solomon that are now bulk billing all of their patients all of the time has tripled since November, Mr Speaker. Now 3/4 of general practices in Solomon are 100% bulk billing because of the investment that we made last year, Mr Speaker. But indeed, right across the territory, bulk billing rates are skyrocketing, helping people see their doctor for free. The bulk billing rate in the territory now for pensioners and concession card holders and kids is now over 97%, the highest rate in the country, Mr Speaker. But the biggest increase, I'm pleased to say, has been for working-age Territorians who don't have the benefit of a concession card. I said yesterday, Mr Speaker, that bulk billing for those working Australians has increased by about 8% across Australia since November, but that increase is 21% in the Territory, a 21% increase for working Australians in just 3 months, which means that the total bulk billing rate in the Northern Territory has already almost reached 90%. It's now 89.5%. And I tell you, Mr Speaker, that shows the value the Territory gets for two amazing local MPs and from a government that's determined to strengthen Medicare.
Call to the honourable member for Nichols.
For climate change and energy, does the minister agree that the Albanese government has broken its promise to reduce household energy bills by $275 by 2025?
Call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Well, thanks, Mr Speaker. I thank the honourable member for his question. And there's no doubt that energy prices have been under pressure in recent years. No doubt at all. We've been very clear about that. Australian people know that. Energy prices in Australia are slightly below the OECD average, but that doesn't mean that that hasn't put huge pressure on Australian families and businesses as energy prices have gone up. That is a fact, Mr Speaker. Now, there's two questions. How did we get here and what are we going to do about it? Well, the fact of the matter is, when there was a global energy crisis, Australia entered that crisis ill-prepared.
The Minister will pause. There's just a wall of noise happening at the moment. So I'm going to ask the Minister just to be heard in silence, just as the member for Nichols was. This is a repeat performance and it's not going to continue today. The Manager of Opposition Business, please don't interject when I'm addressing the House. And the Leader of the Opposition as well. Just...
Mr Speaker, give her a pass.
Order. The Minister will continue.
In defence of the Leader of the Opposition, Mr Speaker, she was complimenting me on my tie, so I'm prepared to take the interjection. But, Mr Speaker, we entered the global energy crisis ill-prepared because under the previous government 4 gigawatts of dispatchable power had left the grid and 1 gigawatt had come on. I hear moans from those opposite.
Order. The Leader of the Nationals.
And as you know, Mr Speaker, I'm always trying to find a bipartisan note at the dispatch box. So to quote Senator Canavan, who recently said, the other thing I often hear from government senators and members of the other place is that the former government failed because 4 gigawatts...
Will pause. The member for Gippsland on a point of order.
Well, thank you, Speaker. And the point of order is on relevance. The question was very tight. The minister is being as loose as a goose. If he can't answer the question, he should just sit down.
Order. The issue with these questions are you're asking an opinion. Does he agree with his commitments to reduce? So he's arguing because of the question he's been asked. It places because of the question, the way the question is framed. So if you're asking whether he thinks he's broken something or disagreed about does he agree the broken promise to reduce the cost, he's arguing that perhaps that's not the case and he doesn't agree with that, right? So it's going to be the same answer that he's going to get to the same question that he's getting over and over again on this topic. So just make sure the minister is being directly relevant. He just can't start quoting random people. He's got to make his answer elected representatives. Other members. Order. that he just needs to make whoever he's quoting directly relevant to the question he was asked.
I, for one, Mr Speaker, would never call Senator Canavan random. But, Mr Speaker, Senator Canavan said,
Order.
The other thing I often hear from government senators and members of the other place is that the former government failed because 4 gigawatts of baseload power came out of the system over that decade or so and only 1 gigawatt was installed to replace it. That is true. That is a fair criticism of energy policy over the last 10 years or so, Mr Speaker. You won't often hear me approvingly quoting Senator Canavan, but he's spot on there, Mr Speaker. Now, then the second question is, what do you do about it? Well, we on this side of the House think that you introduce more of the cheapest, fastest to deploy form of energy. Those opposite think the answer is more of the most expensive, slowest form of energy, Mr Speaker. So, on that side of the House, we saw 4 gigawatts of dispatchable power leave the grid and 1 gigawatt come on. In our not yet 4 years in office, we've seen 2 gigawatts leave and 7.7 gigawatts come on, Mr Speaker. 7.7 gigawatts come on.
Order.
That's more supply. More supply means lower prices, Mr Speaker. Less supply means upward pressure on prices. That's what the Liberal and Nationals left Australia with, particularly their former Energy Minister, the member for Hume, Mr Speaker, who in 2018 promised, and I quote, that he would slash $183 to just over $400 per annum from household bills, Mr Speaker, and in a speech on the 30th of August 2018. By the time he left office, were bills down $400 a year? No, Mr Speaker. They were up $45 on Ausgrid, $116 in Endeavour and $135 for Essential. The member for Hume.
Order. We'll hear from the honourable member for Werriwa.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations. How is the Albanese Labor government working to close the gender pay gap, and how does this compare to other approaches?
I'll give the call to the Minister for Employment and the Minister for Workplace Relations.
Well, thank you, Speaker. I'd like to thank the member for Werriwa for her question and her strong advocacy for working women in this country. Our government has placed gender equality at the heart of our workplace relations reforms. We put gender equality well front and centre when our government funded well overdue pay increases for workers in aged care and early childhood education, many who were women. Early educators like Leanne from Canberra, who said, "We're finally being recognised for the professionals we are." Our government also took action to reinvigorate enterprise bargaining, which is delivering higher wages for women. I'm pleased to report that the latest ABS weekly earnings data show that women on enterprise agreements are earning 12.4% more. This is good news. Now, the Albanese Labor government has consistently advocated to the Fair Work Commission for a pay increase for minimum wage and award-reliant workers, many of whom are women. And when the government also stepped up, importantly, to protect penalty rates in law when they were under threat, to ensure that these same workers' pay wouldn't go backwards. Of course, we banned pay secrecy clauses. This improves the ability for women to advocate for better pay. And we are starting to see the benefits of our reforms. When the former coalition left government, the gender pay gap was at 14.1%. I'm pleased to report to the House that under our government, the gender pay gap is now lowest on record at 11.5%. This progress hasn't happened by accident. It's the result of a government determined to prioritise gender equality. Now, I am asked about other approaches. And yes, there was a very, very different approach to tackling the gender pay gap by those opposite when they were in government. While those opposite sat on the government benches, they failed to take any practical action when it came to closing the gender pay gap. Their attitude was exposed by the very now famous Senator Canavan, who said the gender pay gap report was, and I quote his words, useless data that breeds resentment and division. They just don't get it when it comes to the gender pay gap. But to be fair to Senator Canavan, he might be clueless about the gender pay gap, but one would say he's pretty good at breeding resentment and division when it comes to the coalition. While those opposite remain divided and focus solely on their own jobs, we're getting on with backing Australian women earning more.
The call to the Honourable the Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question goes to the Treasurer. Australia's debt is due to hit $1 trillion over coming months. The Treasurer has spent years dishonestly claiming others had hit this milestone, and yet, in truth, it is going to happen on his watch. Will the Treasurer confirm that, for the very first time in Australia's history, Australia's debt will soon hit $1 trillion?
The part of that question with the dishonesty is not within the standing orders, as we've dealt with that earlier this week as well, so just get you to withdraw that part. You can't accuse someone of being...
Withdraw.
I thank the member. And the Treasurer now has the call.
It's kind of you to refer to him as the Deputy Leader, Mr Speaker. For now it is. Yeah, for now it is.
Order.
That's the point I'm making. That's the point I was making. Order. I'm going to get the House to order, and I'll hear from the Deputy Leader of the Order. I'll hear from the Deputy Leader of the Nationals.
Speaker, thank you. It's not a point of order, but I'm reminding you of your comments at the start of the week, or yesterday, where you said to ensure people are always treated with the highest standards of respect in this chamber, and I would ask the Treasurer to reflect on that.
The member for Barker, just going to have you help the House by not interjecting. And I want to hear the Leader of the House.
Under standing orders, Mr Speaker, somebody can't raise a point of order and then open with "it's not a point of order" and then continue to go on.
Yeah. Look, the order. Just members on my members on my left. Members on my left are going to just cease interjecting. Look, the question was. Members on my right. Can everyone just please show some respect into this chamber? It is absolutely ridiculous. Just everyone realise where they are. The question was reflecting on the Treasurer. We dealt with that. Should never have been in the question in the first place. The Treasurer is just going to continue with his answer and refer to all members by their correct title.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The opposition has a lot of nerve asking this government about debt. This government has worked very hard for 3.5 years to get the Liberal debt down by $176 billion. Debt in the last year is $176 billion lower than we inherited from those opposite, and that will save the people of Australia $60 billion in interest costs, Mr Speaker. They've got a lot of nerve. When we came to office, they had debt as a share of GDP at nearly 45%. We've got it down to 37%. And when it comes to the $1 trillion of debt that they left us, Mr Speaker—
Order. The Deputy Leader of the Opposition, we've dealt with disorderly, and I don't want to have to remove you, but I will if that sort of language continues.
Under the last budget, the pre-election outlook of those opposite in 2022, they had debt crossing the $1 trillion threshold 2 years ago. And because of our efforts, because of our surpluses, our spending restraint, banking the upward revisions to revenue, we've been able to delay that by a couple of years, Mr Speaker, and get peak gross debt to GDP down from 45 to 37. We've got $176 billion less debt than those opposite had, and that's saving the Australian people in interest, Mr Speaker. And so the idea that we would take lectures on debt from those opposite is preposterous, after the mess that they've left us and the efforts that we have put in to cleaning up that mess, Mr Speaker. Now, I think the question from the member for Fairfax partly explains why. In all of the commentary we've seen in recent days about the shambles over there, in every long list of possible deputy leaders and shadow treasurers, the member for Fairfax isn't on it. The member for Fairfax is the only person considered incapable of retaining his spot as the deputy leader of the Liberal Party, Mr Speaker. But he should take some comfort from the fact, that the last guy who failed as shadow treasurer now considers himself entitled to a promotion.
Give the call to the member for Moore.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. What developments have there been in the economy and the Albanese government's economic plan? How does this compare with other approaches?
Call to the Treasurer.
Thanks, Mr Speaker, and once again to the outstanding member for Moore for his question and for his focus on the big issues in our economy and in our society. This is a government which is focused on the big challenges in our economy, even if those opposite are not. And even though inflation is much lower than when we came to office, we do know that it is higher and more persistent than we would like it to be. We know that productivity has ticked up a bit in recent quarters, but for 2 decades now, our economy has not been as productive as we need it to be. And we know that the global economy is unpredictable and volatile as well. And so these 3 challenges guide our economic plan. They're guiding our work on the budget as well. Now, as I said in an earlier answer, we have made progress on budget repair, getting the Liberal debt down, but we know that there is more work to do. We have made progress on policies to boost productivity, but once again, we know that there's more work to do, including in the next budget, Mr Speaker. And we're helping with the cost of living because we know that people are still under pressure. We were reminded of that in recent data, and that's why we're boosting bulk billing. It's why we're boosting superannuation for low-income earners. And it's also why we are rolling out 2 more tax cuts for 14 million Australian taxpayers. From 1 July, every one of those taxpayers gets another tax cut, and they will get another one the year after as well. Now, Mr Speaker, those are the tax cuts that the member for Hume opposed, and he said that he would repeal if he got a chance. It was part of the member for Hume's election platform for higher income taxes, bigger deficits and more debt. And that's especially relevant today because it was the member for Hume himself who told David Spears only in March, and I'm quoting, "The best indicator of future performance is past performance." That's what the member for Hume said. That should send a shiver up the spine of every Liberal and every Australian, Mr Speaker. That sense of entitlement that defines the member for Hume is only matched by the cloud of incompetence which surrounds him, Mr Speaker. And that's why I'm not sure that Senator Patterson—
Order. The member for Bowman will cease interjecting.
That's why I'm not sure that Senator Patterson was being especially helpful to the Liberal cause when he described the member for Hume, and I'm quoting, as the smartest policy brain in shadow cabinet. The smartest policy brain in shadow cabinet, Mr Speaker. You can read that 1 or 2 ways. I don't know what's more worrying, that it's false or that it might be true, Mr Speaker, as the Energy Minister says. Mr Speaker, we are focused on the big issues in our economy, the big challenges in our economy. We're focused on the numbers in the budget. Those opposite are focused on the numbers in the Liberal Party room. And it reminds us once again, they can rearrange the clowns all they like over there, Mr Speaker. It will still be the same 3-ring circus.
Call to the honourable member for Riverina.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. Why hasn't anybody at all, in the Albanese government taken responsibility and apologised for failing to deliver the $275 energy bill reduction promised to Australian families?
Call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm very grateful to my honourable friend for the question, and I'm particularly grateful for the interest shown by the National Party in my portfolio, Mr Speaker. To paraphrase my favourite tailor, it's actually sweet all the time you spend on me. It's actually romantic, Mr Speaker.
Order.
I won't be thinking—
Order.
Yeah. They're on to me. Mr Speaker, I won't be thinking about the National Party on Saturday, even if they're thinking about me on Valentine's Day, because their obsession is just a little bit over the top, Mr Speaker. But I wish them all the best. Oh, here he is. What's the matter, sport?
Order. Order. Members on my right. The members on my right. The member for Wannon is entitled to a point of order. The member for Barker is now warned and won't be here if he interjects one more time. Okay. The member for Wannon will take his point of order.
Speaker, it goes to relevance. It was a very specific and direct question, and I would like you to ask the minister to come back to it, especially the $275 part.
Yes, I agree with the member for Wannon. It was a question, but the problem I have with these questions are they are bordering on asking for an opinion, as they are in that category, understanding Order 98. D, number 1. So I'm just trying to work within the standing orders, but these questions are very difficult for me to oversee because they're asking for an opinion or a reason, and it's a lot different to when you ask a fact or a figure question. That's all I'm saying. So the Valentine's Day was not part of the question, so thank goodness. So may the minister please just return to the question. He's had the preamble, and I'll ask him to return to the subject of the topic.
Just pointing out, Mr Speaker, I'm very grateful for the question, and I'm grateful to the National Party, especially as the Shadow Minister hasn't bothered to ask me a question all year, Mr Speaker. But I get plenty of questions from the National Party, not from my part-time Shadow Minister, full-time Deputy Leader candidate, Mr Speaker. But
Order.
To deal with the question, Mr Speaker,
Order. Members on my
as
left.
I said in my previous answer, energy prices have been high around the world, including in Australia. And so we as a government decide to do something about it by providing energy bill relief opposed by those opposite. Our policy is to introduce more energy, 7.7 gigawatts introduced to the grid, not promised, planned, in development, connected, Mr Speaker, to the grid operating, as opposed to those opposite, particularly the member for Hume, who oversaw 4 gigawatts of dispatchable power leave the grid and 1 gigawatt come on. So our plan is more of the cheapest form of energy and the fastest to deploy. Their plan has several parts. More of the most expensive form of energy.
We've had one point of order on relevance. The member for Gippsland, I'd like him to state the point of order.
Speaker, the minister is defying your ruling to be relevant to the question.
Once again, I explained to the House the difficulty with these broad questions. They're not narrow. They are not narrow questions. They're asking for a broad question that the minister is giving a broad answer to, but it would assist the House if the minister could not refer to government necessarily opposition policy, because he wasn't asked about opposition policy.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Simply pointing out that recognising energy prices are too high, there is an obligation on governments and oppositions to do something about it. But we have very different plans.
Order.
Our plan is more energy, and we are getting more energy on. 7.7 gigawatts connected, 4 gigawatts off, only 1 gigawatt on under them. Their other plan, the other part of their plan, is to sweat coal-fired power for longer. That is their plan. They're open about it. That is unreliable. That is a threat to reliability of the system. Today, Mr Speaker, today, as we speak, we have 2.9 gigawatts of coal-fired power broken down. 4 units, or 1 unit at Eraring, 1 unit at Vales Point, 2 units at Yulorn and 3 units at Gladstone, all not working. And for some of those haven't been working for weeks, Mr Speaker. That is a threat to reliability. We want to replace that energy and get more new energy on. They want that to last for longer. That means higher bills. That means more pressure on Australian families. That means more pressure on Australian industry and more pressure on rural and regional Australians. We have a better plan.
Give the call to the honourable member for Aston.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Defence. How is the Albanese government delivering for defence, and what are the alternative approaches?
Give the call to the Minister for Defence Industry, the Minister for Pacific Island Affairs and the Minister representing the Minister for Defence.
I thank the member for their question.
Order.
The highest duty of any government is to defend the Australian people and safeguard our national interest. And, Mr Speaker, the Albanese Labor government is laser-focused on delivering this through record defence investments, our reform agenda and getting the equipment our ADF needs into their hands sooner. Speaker, we're delivering warships way ahead of schedule. We're producing autonomous Ghost Shark submarines right now to safeguard our maritime approaches. We're rolling missiles out of an Aussie factory and building a second one right now. And we're acquiring counter-drone capabilities in record time. Now, Speaker, I'm asked about alternate approaches. While we've been busy delivering, what's the former Shadow Defence Minister been up to? He certainly hasn't been asking many questions in Parliament. 3 defence questions in 285 days. Now, to be fair, I think he's actually learned from his disastrous time as the Shadow Treasurer. Some would reflect and try and improve their performance, but not the member for Hume. He's decided the simplest solution is to just disappear. You can't fail if no one knows you're the Shadow Defence Minister. 3 defence questions in 285 days. Clearly his focus has been elsewhere. One thing is crystal clear. His focus is self-interest, not the national interest. So, Speaker, let's summarise our approach to defence compared to the member for Hume's record.
Order. The member for
Speaker,
Herbert.
we're acquiring stealth fighters. He was a stealth Shadow Minister. We're investing record amounts in our submarines as part of the silent service. He was the silent defence spokesperson. We have the Nolka that imitates warships to decoy missiles. He imitated Facebook followers. We're forging ammunition and shells. He used documents that, let's say, weren't real.
Order. Order. When the House comes... Order. Order. Members on my right, the Minister for Infrastructure, the Minister for Climate Change. The Minister will just pause. I want to hear from the manager.
You probably don't, but on relevance, the Minister's not being relevant to the question and he's indulging in fake news, and I'd ask you to pull him to order and sit him down if he can't answer a serious question. No. Calm down, mate.
Order. The manager doesn't need to add when he's raising points of order. Just going to remind the Minister he was asked about other approaches. I've given him some leeway. Just make sure his answer is being directly relevant to what he was asked about. Perhaps update the House on policy.
Thanks, Speaker, and I'll keep talking about our approach to defence compared to the alternative one. Speaker, we're investing in better camouflage for the Army.
Order.
He camouflaged power prices. We're increasing long-range strike for the Navy. He's launched a close-range strike on the opposition leader.
Order.
We're getting new ships, new missiles and new drones. He got a new haircut. We're focused on defence. He's blowing up the Liberal Party. Speaker, we're focused on the defence of the nation. They're just embroiled in their divisions and putting their self-interest ahead of the national interest.
Order. The member for Gippsland and Cowper are now on warnings alongside the member for Barker. Give a call to the member for Monash.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Mother of 3, Pushpan Jali, told the Herald Sun that Labor's interest rate rises have, quote, already affected us 3 times. My kids used to do swimming, karate and soccer, but now they only go to swimming because the 3 activities were out of our budget. It's like we are just living our lives to pay the mortgage and nothing else. Meanwhile, the Clean Energy Regulator is looking to spend $500,000 to upgrade fancy meeting rooms. Prime Minister, when Australians are being asked to tighten their belts, why can't this Labor government?
Give a call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Monash for her question. And indeed, I hope that the member has the integrity to say to the member who she asks about that, to be fair to the member, she was not here when her opponent, so she mightn't be aware because it's pretty unbelievable, that this Treasurer on budget night handed down a position to have top-up tax cuts, a tax cut this July and another tax cut next July, after this Treasurer came into the House and moved legislation to readjust the tax cuts to make sure that low and middle income earners got a fair crack, and it was taken from the top to give them a crack.
Order.
That's what this Treasurer did. Now, it is unbelievable that at the time the shadow Treasurer that night of the budget went and did interviews and said that they were opposed to the tax cuts. Yep. And then did AM the next morning and said that they would actually legislate, if they were elected, to increase the taxes of low and middle income earners in particular, but all 14 million Australians. So I hope that the member for Monash told the constituent or the person mentioned in the Herald Sun that was the case. Because what we have done is understand that people are under financial pressure, but you can have 2 approaches to that. You can see grievance and try to just feed it, or what you can do is try to address it. What we do is try to address it by lifting up cost of living measures. That's why we've provided energy bill relief. That's why we've provided cheaper medicines. That's why we've provided the 20% cut in student debt. That's why we've tripled the bulk billing incentive. That's why we've opened Medicare urgent care clinics. That's why we have cheaper medicines. That's why we have a batteries program to assist with reducing energy bills as well. All of those measures are what we have done. The other thing we have done is to provide each and every single year that we have been in office for an increase in the minimum wage, something that those opposite, the coalition, whoever has sat in the Liberal Party leadership chair, has never ever put in a submission to the Fair Work Commission saying that wages should be increased for people on the minimum wage. That's the big difference. We want people to earn more and keep more of what they earn, and we want cost of living relief, all of it opposed by those opposite, regardless of who sits at the front.
The member for Herbert has had a very good go today, and this week he'll leave the chamber under 94A. Order. That kind of interjection is highly disorderly, and we're not having it. We'll hear from the honourable member for Chisholm with her question.
Thank you so much, Speaker. My question is to the Minister representing the Minister for Women. How is the Albanese Labor government supporting women in the workplace and strengthening their rights at work? Are there other approaches that could jeopardise this progress?
The call to the Minister for Infrastructure, Transport, Regional Development, Local Government, representing the Minister for Women.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. And can I thank the member for Chisholm, and can I just say what an absolute pleasure it is to look at our backbench and our front bench and see so many women representing their constituencies here in this place. It's not the first time that I've made this point in this chamber, but it bears repeating that the Albanese Labor government is the first female-majority cabinet with the first female-majority government in Australia's history. The gender equity within the Labor Party is a result of decades of purposeful work. I know we're still a day away from Friday the 13th, so I'll try not to spook those opposite. They're doing a pretty good job of having done that themselves this week. But I do want to mention affirmative action. Mr Speaker, in 1994, the Australian Labor Party first introduced affirmative action for women. Now, over 30 years later, you can see the results of that decision before you. A party and a government that is full to the brim with bright, talented women contributing to our parliament and standing up for their communities. And do you know why it is important to have women in the room making decisions, women in leadership positions? It's because of the difference it makes. The difference it makes to women. It means we can deliver not only for them here, but out there, which is the most important thing we can do. Under this government, we have made significant progress with the gender pay gap. Record low of 11.5%. In 2022, we were ranked 23rd. Now, 43rd, we're now ranked 13th. We've expanded paid parental leave, and we're paying it on super on it. 1st of January, we delivered 3-day universal childcare. We've delivered pay increases in women-dominated industry like aged care and early education. We've delivered a tax cut for every taxpayer, 90% of women better off, and will deliver further tax cuts this year. But I wonder who was the Shadow Treasurer, in fact, who decided that those opposite would vote against tax cuts, particularly tax cuts for women. It was obviously the member for Hume. But that's not all. He, of course, is also one of the architects of the opposition's return to work policy and has also, in fact, been one of the chief opponents to affirmative action in the Liberal Party. I give you the smartest policy brain in the Liberal Party. And in the last 9 months, what we've seen is persistent undermining of the Liberal Party's first ever female leader from day one. Now, that's not my words. That's not my words.
Order.
That is the words of your Shadow Attorney-General. And I couldn't agree more.
Order.
Persistent undermining from day
on my
one.
left will cease
While the
interjecting.
Liberals engage in the embarrassing spectacle that we see before us, Labor is getting on with the work, and we are working every day for the women of this country.
The call to the honourable member for Bradfield.
Thank you. My question is for the Minister representing the Environment Minister. Minister, late last year this parliament passed important reforms to our nature laws, the EPBC Act. The changes allow states to be delegated approval powers that are traditionally federal ones. Your government sold this to us on the promise that strong, outcomes-focused national environmental standards would be in place before the states acquired those powers. Will the government once more assure the Australian people that the states will not be given increased powers until all of these critical standards are finalised?
The call to the Minister representing the Minister for the Environment.
Yeah, thanks very much, Speaker, and I thank the member for Bradfield for the question. In terms of the laws that were passed, first of all, on the concept of delegating approvals and assessment powers to the states, that did exist under the old Act. But under the old Act, you effectively had to entirely delegate, and the concept of only delegating specific functions is something that was new under what went through. In terms of the progress of both standards and any concept of delegation to the states, if I can go through the pace as to how each of those works, getting the new environmental standards is our #1 priority. That's where the pace is occurring. The new legislation comes into effect in tranches over the next year, and there will be opportunities for people to be engaging on the development of the new national environmental standards, and they are the backbone of the legislation that went through. Work is already well underway on developing the standards, and we're working through. There's been in the order of around 700 submissions that have been made on those standards, which we're now working through. In terms of the delegation, the concept of there are two different forms of delegation. You've got delegation potentially of assessments and you've got delegation of approvals. The delegation of assessments is something that would have to be in place and functioning before a delegation of approvals was even being considered. So in terms of the order, it's the standards that are happening at pace now, and anything in terms of delegation, there would have to have been for some time a functioning assessments agreement before there was consideration being given of approvals.
Give the call to the honourable member for Barton.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Regional Development, Local Government and Territories. How is the Albanese Labor government working with local councils to support communities, and how does this compare to other approaches?
Give the call to the Minister for Emergency Management, the Minister for Regional Development, Local Government and Territories.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Barton for the question, because before she arrived here, she was a councillor at Georges River Council, and she knows how important it is to fully fund local councils so that they can support our local communities. Our government strongly supports a sustainable local government sector, because we know that a strong and sustainable local government sector supports our communities to thrive. Mr Speaker, numbers matter, and those opposite are painfully aware of that. But we on this side of the House are focused on different numbers, numbers that matter to the lives of Australians, numbers like $3.4 billion of direct investment in local government this year through financial assistance grants, ensuring councils have access to funds to deliver the services communities rely on. Those opposite froze indexation on financial assistance grants when they were in government, ripping nearly $1 billion out of the sector. In contrast, Mr Speaker, we are doubling the Roads to Recovery program, delivering $1 billion annually to support councils across the country. We've increased road black spot funding to $150 million a year, meaning more money for those dangerous sections of our local roads. And we're delivering our new $200 million Safer Local Road and Infrastructure program, with Tranche 3 announced just last week. Most importantly, we're delivering transparent grant programs available to every council across the country, from growing regions and thriving suburbs to regional and urban precincts and partnerships program. Whilst the previous coalition government made reckless commitments that councils couldn't deliver, and we know of the colour-coded spreadsheets from grant programs, from everything from connectivity to infrastructure. And who could forget that doozy of regional grants being given to the North Sydney pool, which I don't think is open yet. Mr Speaker, as a former local mayor, I know how important it is to have productive relationships with all levels of government, and I take a very different approach to those opposite. We know when those opposite were in government, the member for Hume was forced to apologise to the Lord Mayor of Sydney after claiming she'd driven up carbon emissions by spending $15 million on travel. Turns out councillors had only spent close to $6,000. Now, I'm no Rhodes Scholar, and I didn't study economics at Oxford. I attended a humble but mighty public school, but by my rough calculations, that's a $14,994,000 mistake. Mr Speaker, as I said, numbers matter in this place, and I heard the member for Hume described as a numbers man this morning. Geez, I'd want to hope he gets his numbers right this time.
Give the call to the order. Give the call to the member for Curtin.
My question is to the Prime Minister. Many Australians increasingly feel angry, divided and isolated. Social media platforms play a large part in this, driven by algorithms that control our attention, amplify hate and create echo chambers. The minimum age for social media is a start, but there's more to do, such as the promised duty of care or giving people more control over the algorithms imposed on them. What more will your government do to build safe and positive online spaces to urgently protect and repair our social fabric?
Call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Curtin for her question and for her interest in what is, I think, one of the critical challenges facing not just us here in Australia but globally as well. How we deal with this new technology that can make an enormous difference, enables us to be better connected than we have ever been, enables us to get information at our fingertips that we simply would have had to have gone to the library or gone through a much more time-extensive route. But our social media ban is a start, and the member's right that we need to do more. The social media ban, though, has exceeded the government's expectations. The fact that 4.7 million accounts either got shut down or paused in the initial stages, and the ongoing work is occurring across those 10 platforms. It's about giving Australian kids more time away from the pool, of recommender systems. It's about giving them more time to develop real friendships with real people and to learn how to get along with people who might have different views or experiences. And the fact that it's being replicated around the world, with Spain the latest country to get on board, shows Australia leading the way in this area. Our upcoming digital duty of care will also put the onus on platforms, though, to proactively protect all Australians from harm. And this can have a range of areas: grooming of people, the algorithms pushing people towards more and more extreme views. And I was part of the American Leadership Dialogue many years ago at Stanford University with someone who was a whistleblower at Facebook, who spoke about the impact that it had had in pushing people towards extremism and the danger that that represented. We need to assert as a country, not just as a government, that social media has a social responsibility, because these algorithms can cause enormous issues. They can amplify rather than reduce prejudice. We see in some of the debate about issues that should be able to be discussed much more respectfully, such as the Middle East and other issues of conflict, people being pushed into more and more extreme positions, people being pushed in ways in which they presented as facts, things that simply are not true as well. Social media does not optimise for social cohesion. It does have a social responsibility. We all need to work hard as a community to ensure we're acting with thought and with kindness, whether in real life or online. People will say things online they would never say to your face, and that is a real issue that we have to confront. And I thank very much the member for Curtin for raising this issue, and I say to her and others in this chamber as well, this is something that really should be right above politics, that we need to work on as a society, because together we all have an interest on behalf of not just ourselves but more importantly as well the generations to come.
Call to the honourable member for Griffith.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. How is the Albanese Labor government modernising our energy grid? Why is this important after a decade of mismanagement, and what are the risks?
The call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Well, thank you, Mr Speaker. And the honourable member for Griffith will be particularly pleased to know, given we launched the cheaper home batteries policy in her electorate, her now electorate, wasn't her electorate at the time, it now is, in April, that as of today, 230,890 Australian households have installed a cheaper home battery, reducing their bills by up to 90% and in many cases getting a rebate instead of a bill. Now, those figures are not included in the 7.7 gigawatts of dispatchable energy that we have added to the grid, to go to the honourable member's question about progress. And we've seen a sign of that progress in the last quarter of last year, when we hit 51% renewables for the first time. It was also a quarter of record electricity use, more electricity use than ever in Australian history, but the grid coped very well. We saw emissions hit an all-time low as use hit an all-time high, and we also saw wholesale prices fall by 44% to $50 a megawatt, Mr Speaker. Now, the honourable member asked me why this is important after a decade of neglect and what the risks are. Well, I have to say, Mr Speaker, the 50% figure, which we've just hit, was not unpredicted. In fact, in 2018, the Labor Party indicated we would like to get to 50% renewables. And at the time, the then Energy Minister was asked, what will that mean for wholesale prices if we got to 50% renewables? And on the day he was asked, when he was the Minister, wholesale prices were $92 a megawatt. And the member for Hume was asked, what will happen to wholesale prices if we got to 50% of renewable energy? And he said, it will certainly have a huge impact on the wholesale market. It will probably double the wholesale market. In fact, prices have halved since then, Mr Speaker. Double, half, I mean, who cares? It's all the same, Mr Speaker. It's all the same. Now,
Order.
This is good news for the member for Farrer, Mr Speaker, because numbers aren't the strong point of the member for Hume. When he's not getting them wrong, he's hiding them by changing the law, or making them up like he did when it comes to the Lord Mayor's travel bill for the City of Sydney, and then blaming his staff for it, Mr Speaker. The only thing that the member for Hume has more trouble with than numbers is working out what Facebook account he's logged into at any particular time, Mr Speaker. It's very confusing sometimes. It's very hard work. The trouble is, there's very little cost to be paid for that sort of mistake, but Australians are paying the price of the member for Hume's mismanagement. Those 4 gigawatts that left the grid and only 1 gigawatt come on, we're still paying the price. Australian industry is paying the price. Australian households are paying the price. Australian households know that we need to get on with the job of the energy transition after a decade of denial and delay. That's what they asked us to do in May. That's what we'll keep doing while those opposite are focused on themselves.
Give the call to the member for Durack.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Single mum Kylie has told the West Australian of the impact of Labor's cost of living crisis, and I quote, "I had no money and was left behind in my rent and couldn't even provide a birthday cake for my kids. The cost of even a small shop at supermarkets is ridiculous." End of quote. Meanwhile, the Department of Foreign Affairs spent $17,295 on a luxury party boat in Sydney Harbour. Prime Minister, when Australians are tightening their belts, why can't this Labor government?
The call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Durack for her question. And indeed, when it comes to Kylie's circumstances, we on this side empathise with everyone in Australia who are doing it tough. Many people are doing it tough
The member
in
for
Australia,
Lindsay
and
will
that's
cease
why
interjecting.
we seek to do something about it. Now, I have no idea, I'm not aware of the circumstances around Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, but Foreign Affairs, we host people. We hosted someone over the last couple of days, and I assure you the cost was a lot more than that for the President of Israel to visit here. That is what governments do through the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. We host people, and certainly I have hosted international leaders here and delegations. When it comes to Kylie's circumstances, though, if Kylie is in work, Kylie would have got a tax cut that, given those circumstances that Kylie speaks about, chances are she wouldn't have got anything under their government, of which the member for Durack was a part. She doesn't have the same excuse as the member for Monash. She was here when she implemented tax cuts at the high end and voted against the tax cut for Kylie. She voted against Kylie getting energy bill relief. She voted against Kylie getting support with cheaper medicines if she has it. If Kylie has kids at school, she's opposed to and regards as waste the fair funding that we have for every public school in Australia for the first time. If Kylie in Western Australia visits an urgent care clinic, and I was in Ellenbrook on the weekend, and in Ellenbrook with the member for Hasluck, we went to the new urgent care clinic there that's already seen. Thousands of people will go through that clinic in a growing area of Western Australia. We, on this side of the chamber, don't just empathise, we do something about it. Those on that side of the chamber oppose every cost of living measure that we have put forward, regard it all as waste, whether it's the record women's health program that we've established, the support for Medicare, the support for education, but school funding, free TAFE or university hubs. They oppose real wages and minimum wages being increased, and they oppose tax cuts for every Australian.
Give the call to the member for Spence.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Education. What is the Albanese Labor government doing to cut student debt and make university more accessible for students in the outer suburbs and regions? Why is it important to be united in delivering these changes, and what are the risks of alternative approaches?
Call to the Minister for Education.
Well, thanks very much, Mr Speaker, and can I thank my friend, the sensational member for Spence, for his question. As he knows, we've cut student debt by 20%, and when we announced that we would cut student debt by 20% for 3 million Australians, the Liberal Party immediately opposed it. And the then Shadow Treasurer put out a statement where, remember, he said this: "There are no free lunches in economics." And then proceeded to announce a policy of free lunches, but for bosses. That was, I promise I'm not making it up, that was the big vision. Escargot for CEOs. No wonder the Australian people chewed them up and spat them out, but obviously they've learnt nothing, because Julius Caesar had more support from his senators than what we've seen going on over there today. Now, Mr Speaker, I'm asked about how we're going to help more young Australians get a crack at going to university. I can tell you, as I said on Monday, more Aussies will go to university this year than ever before. But I can also tell you there are more university study hubs today than ever before. We promised to double them, and we've done it, and then some. There's now 69 of them operating across the country. And to give you an idea of how important they are, think about this. And I should say one of them is in Elizabeth, in the member for Spencer's electorate. In Elizabeth Bay in Sydney, 70% of young adults in their 20s or 30s have a uni degree today. In Elizabeth, in South Australia, in the member for Spencer's electorate, it's 7%, not 70, 7%. These hubs are about changing that by bringing uni closer to where people live. And I know that my mate, the member for Spence, gets that. That's why he fought so hard for it. That's why he got so emotional at the opening of it. I'm sure he won't mind me telling people he shed a tear or two on the day. And that's because he loves his community and he knows what this will do and the lives that it will change. And, Mr Speaker, I know you love your community too, and you get it as well. We opened a study hub in Inala in your electorate a couple of weeks ago, and we got a chance to meet the young people from Glenalla State High. This is for them and kids like them who dream big. And the fact is, think about it, guys. Just think about it. Talent is distributed equally. It's opportunity that's not. And it's things like this, it's hubs like this that are about changing that.
Call to the member for Hinkler.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Did Australian families see the $275 reduction in their energy bills the Prime Minister promised 97 times?
Call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. Order.
There's no getting away from me, Mr Speaker. No getting away from me. I thank the honourable member for the question. I thank the Prime Minister for the opportunity to take it. What Australians have had access to, Mr Speaker, is 230,000 cheaper home batteries to reduce their bills to nothing. Including 44% of them, Mr Speaker, in rural and regional Australia, and including in the honourable member's home state of Queensland, 55% of cheaper home batteries have been in rural and regional Australia. 55% in Queensland. The people those opposite are meant to represent.
Order. Order. The member for Lingiari. I'll keep an eye out for props. Don't worry about that. The Minister has concluded, so the member for Gippsland will also resume his seat. And the member for Cowper is going to leave the chamber. I just specifically said don't mention props. You're on a warning. Not appropriate behaviour. And I warned at the beginning of question time. This is what happens. There's consequences for actions. We shall now hear from the honourable member for Dunkley.
My question is to the Minister for Social Services. How is the Albanese Labor government delivering for Australian families in social services, and what puts this at risk?
Call to the Minister for Social Services.
Thanks so much, Mr Speaker, and I really want to thank the member for Dunkley for her question, because I know not only is she a great supporter of the work that this government is doing on family and domestic violence, but she knows how important the increases have been to pensions and other payments in her electorate. And, Mr Speaker, I'm very proud to say that on this side of the House we are absolutely focused on helping Australian families. That means up to $5,000 extra if you're on a pension. It means $1,800 extra in rent assistance. It means cheaper medicines, cheaper childcare, higher wages, lower taxes, 5% deposits, cuts to student debt, free TAFE, a whole range of measures to take pressure off families, including almost doubling the amount of paid parental leave since we've come to government. Australians getting paid parental leave are about $12,000 better off under this Prime Minister. So after 40 weeks of carrying a baby, mums and dads can look forward to 6 months off. But after 39 weeks of carrying the Liberal Party, I'd say this Leader of the Opposition can also look forward to a little bit of time off from the job. It's interesting that the member for Hume has said that a crusade was needed to attract more women to the Liberal Party. He said, we absolutely need more women in the party at every level. I don't think he meant every level. Let's not forget it's the member for Hume that trashed the economic reputation of the Liberal Party. He went to the last election promising both higher taxes and higher deficits. He's the man who hid energy price increases. He released those dodgy documents around Clover Moore's travel. There's the Jamland saga, there's the dodgy water buybacks. He said he lived up the road from Naomi Wolf at Oxford. She wasn't there at the time. It was reported that a prominent Liberal woman said of the member for Hume, he is a caricature of a Liberal male, males who have managed to progressively alienate women from the Liberal Party. It does seem to me, Mr Speaker, that any day of the week an average bloke in the Liberal Party wins over a woman, and the only real qualification you need are the XY chromosomes.
Order. When the House comes to order. We'll hear from the honourable member for Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Western Sydney mum Kate has told the ABC that her family are now having to rely on a community pantry to make ends meet, saying she has, quote, relied pretty heavily on them in the last couple of years. Meanwhile, last year the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade spent $17,930 on a Kylie Minogue impersonator at a Wellington food festival. Prime Minister, when Australians are tightening their belts, why can't this Labor government?
The call to the Prime Minister.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. I thank the member for Lindsay.
Order.
I thank the member for Lindsay for her question. It goes to Kate being concerned about costs of living, something that we share that concern, which is why we're doing everything we can to help people like Kate, the energy bill relief, the cheaper batteries, the cheaper medicines, the free TAFE, the making sure that tax cuts are put in place, the urgent care clinics, including one or many that are in Western Sydney. The member also refers to waste. I hope that if she does know Kate, she tells Kate about the $31 billion in cost blowouts associated with Inland Rail, the $29 billion in cost blowouts for the NBN. At least something was being created there. But we actually paid the French $4 billion to cancel, to not build the submarines. We paid $1.8 billion out to victims of robo-debt. We paid $444 million to the Great Barrier Reef Foundation without a tender process or even consultation with the foundation itself. We spent $660 million on commuter car parks, including where there was no railway station. $423 million on an offshore processing contract awarded to a firm registered to a shack on Kangaroo Island. Now, I'm very affectionate about Kangaroo Island these days, Mr Speaker,
Order.
but $423 million for a shack registered a company there. $100 million on sports rights funding based on the colour-coded spreadsheet. $70 million on a COVID-safe app that found only two unique positive COVID cases. $30 million for Western Sydney Airport land. Remember that? 10 times its value. 10 times its value. And of course, during COVID, the $20 billion of JobKeeper paid to companies who were increasing their profits, not having it decrease. When we talk about waste, the Liberal Party are the experts.
The call to the honourable member for Whitlam.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is for the Prime Minister. What has been the focus of the Albanese Labor government over the past fortnight, and how does this differ to other priorities?
Give the call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Whitlam for her question and for the fantastic contribution she is making to represent the people of the south part of the Illawarra and the Southern Highlands. As a Labor government, when we come to Canberra here, our focus is on delivering for the communities that we represent and delivering for the national interest in line with Australian values, turning the promises that we took to the Australian people that saw us elected in May 2022 and then re-elected with a bigger majority in May 2025 into the progress that people want to see. We know that there's always more to do, more we can achieve together, and Australians can be sure that that will always be our focus. I lead a government that is orderly, that is cohesive, that has proper cabinet processes, that work as a unit together, that make decisions after getting proper information and make sure that it gets implemented. And that is what our focus is every time we come here to Canberra. But those opposite have shown that their focus is on each other and on themselves. We have a declaration, or not quite a declaration. I watched last night, it was pretty extraordinary. Went out there, a resignation, and then no declaration of why he was resigning, and certainly no policy alternatives being put forward. And that, of course, was on, in terms of timing, on the day that President Herzog was visiting this parliament. Now, that is consistent with the sort of disruption that we've seen, and the timing and the priorities don't seem to matter to those opposite. On the National Day of Mourning for victims of the anti-Semitic Bondi terrorist attack, they announced that the coalition was splitting for the second time. On the day of the funeral of the well-respected across this parliament member for Higgins, the members for Hume and Canning were publicly plotting against their leader at a house in Melbourne. The member for Hume, of course, has been a part of all of this, and today, on the day of the Closing the Gap report, we have the call for a spill and a range of resignations from the front bench. And tomorrow on the morning in which members of the Stolen Generation will attend the breakfast at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, at 9 o'clock, those opposite will be making calls before then and filing into their party room in order to either depose or reaffirm who the leader of the Labor Party is.
Order. Order. The Prime Minister's time has concluded his answer. Just resume. The Prime Minister.
He's not going to be Leader of the House, let alone Leader of Government, Mr Speaker. And I ask that further questions be placed on the notice paper.